Okay, we're live. Welcome to the first Mazecast in a very long time.
Has it been? How long has it been?
Oh, I don't even remember the last one. Maze hats. When was Maze hats?
Well, it feels like it was yesterday.
I think it's been months.
Okay.
It's been months.
It's been less than a year.
Yeah, that's still fine. I'm still keeping it going for the fans.
Yeah. We had a comment on the YouTube channel. We've had a new user, Tony Klein, will join the hangout, who has promised us that he's going to check in here later tonight. So eventually we'll be talking with Tony. Alex may appear at some point. Don't hold your breath. As long as he's available, Alex always has at least the option for better plans.
Yep, but we're here.
Right. And the plan for tonight is we're going to use our handy maze room, random room generator or something to that effect. We're just going to use a regular old random number generator. And it's going to give us a room, and we're going to go to the room and talk about it until we're done talking about it and then say goodnight.
That's right. All right. Shall we do that now, Vincent?
Let's do it. Can you pull it up on your screen so they can see the number being generated in real time?
Yes, I can.
I mean, only the people who are watching now, which is just us, will see it in real time, but.
Okay, ready? So it's currently on 32, but we're going to actually hit the button and see what happens. Okay?
Oh, okay.
So that's just what it's on right now. So I'm going to hit the button. Oh, 33. Oh, 33. Done this room to death. Okay. It's all right.
We should have picked one of those rooms that we haven't done to death.
Yeah, right. Okay, I'm going to bring up room 33. So we can look at that and see your face. There we go. Okay. So we can make this a little bigger.
I don't know whether 33 should be intimidating or welcoming in the fact that it has so many clear symbols associated with each door. That seems inviting to me. It should be a place where we can concentrate and say, all right, how do these symbols relate to these doors? We know that they do, It's not like a lot of rooms where you've got some stuff in the room and you don't know what it relates to or what it's about. Like it seems here, at least, there should be some relationship between the images by the doors and the doors. On the other hand, just having so much stuff in the room can kind of be a deterrent. Like you just don't know where to start.
Yeah, and I think that the answer for me anyway is that initially it was very welcoming and it's kind of an exciting room. So you feel like it's so clearly puzzly and you should be able to figure something out. But then the more we have talked about it and looked at it and tried to work out different things, it just becomes really frustrating. You start to think, well, maybe Diane's theory is right, and most of the stuff in the loop is just misdirection.
Which I'm a little skeptical of, if only because it seems to me like it's just as easy, or well, probably easier to generate image ideas based on a hastily conceived pattern or puzzle than to make them up randomly.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, it's not impossible that he just chose some stock images and put them up there, but it seems more likely to me that he had some reason for doing it, even if the reason is pretty opaque to us.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly with these images above the door, it's like some of them cry out to be interpreted as letters. The key looks so much like an F.
Mm-hmm.
And the insect there probably is supposed to be a B, although it doesn't, look exactly like a B, but probably what it's supposed to be. And we've got the double flute there. I can't remember what it's called, but it looks so much like a V. It's hard to resist that, but then it kind of tapers off from there. You can find some letters and some other things, but you have to work a lot harder. You
Well,
could see a
the
double.
dagger's a pretty good T. You could take that pretty easily as a T.
Yeah, dagger's a pretty good T. I mean, the crown, you could see the top of it as a W.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the like pitcher by door 3, you could sort of think of as like a P. I don't know what to do with that ring.
Yeah, I mean, viewed from above, it's an O. Viewed from the side, it's an O. Or it's
Well, yeah,
eight,
celebrities with that.
an 8 or an infinity symbol or
Mhm. And the ring is actually one of the most vexing things, I suppose, because it has that symbol of a bird on it, which kind of removes it from the clear-cut symbolism of the other objects. Like the other objects, I don't know, they're fairly simple in what they represent, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But with this, it's like, why is it not just a bird, and why is it not just a ring? Why a ring with a bird on it?
Mm-hmm.
It seems to beg a somewhat more complicated explanation, or it seems to be a reference to something in particular, perhaps.
Well, unless he just intended that, it's a ring with a picture, meaning it's something meant to be pressed into wax. So it's a signet ring.
Yeah.
And the image doesn't matter as much, but who knows?
Mm-hmm. And the rooms, it's got interesting stuff going on even apart from that. Like, if this room were just a normal room with a regular floor and nothing going on the walls, but it had all these symbols by the doors, it would still be fairly interesting. But it's also got this, got no floor.
Right.
And it's got these stacked things going up and light coming from below, which sort of cries out to be the focus of the room, like to be important in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess this room, as much as any of them, a question, is every interesting design feature in these rooms part of the puzzle, or were there some things that he just thought it would be cool to put in the maze?
Mm-hmm.
He put them in there. That he put some outdoor rooms in the maze because being outdoor is particularly important to the puzzle, or did he just feel like, the maze is a place that should have some interesting locations, and I want to put this stuff outside.
Right.
He just have this vision where, he's drawing 45 rooms, and he just thought, how about we do one of these without a floor?
Yeah, because there's only so many ways you can vary a basic room in an interesting way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something to that, but it's hard to imagine that he then wouldn't have wanted that to be part of the puzzle. Like, what do you think about the planks? Like the simple solution that the plank to 3 looks like the most stable one.
I think that's dumb.
I think that's dumb.
I think that's some pretty motivated reasoning.
Maybe.
We would not accept that without knowing that was the correct door to go through. I'm still not of the mind that these solutions are necessarily just going to tell you the right door.
Right.
Well, I guess I'm not of the mind that anything necessarily does anything. And then on top of all these signs we have by the door numbers, there's the drum in place of the door number.
Mm-hmm.
The door that comes from 17. And there's the picture of the wagon or carriage of which, in one sense, it's just one more thing or two more things in the room. In another, it makes it seem like, well, these symbols can't be as simple as 2 of them are associated with each door and they mean something for that door if there are also these other images that we have to somehow work into it. That don't fit that pattern. Like maybe it's completely arbitrary what door these images are by, and it's just the collection of images themselves need to be put together.
Right. That if you read them in the right way, it tells you where to go.
Um,
Well, and that drum, of course, is the same drum that you see in room one.
yeah, harkens back to room one, certainly.
Which is interesting. Like you can't go through that door, but that's the door back to the path most directly.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to hold a consistent meaning for drum unless it's just associated with fucking up.
Right. And there's so this so one of the solutions on the abyss is the musical instrument thing.
What's that about?
So that one was you have a bunch of musical instruments. The only one you could actually play is the one by door 3, which I mean you have to sort of say, oh well, you can't properly play the fiddle because you don't have a bow.
Can you guess what I think about that?
I have no idea what you think about that. Why didn't you tell me?
Well, it's pretty arbitrary to say that. I mean, so I guess the reason why you can't play the flute is because it's not real.
Right, it's a picture.
Jesus Christ.
And the drum too.
Yeah.
Well, so like that's a solution that you get by going, okay, there's 4 musical instruments in here. What could they be telling me as a collective that will get me the answer door 3?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you could make similarly strained arguments for any one of those instruments, I suppose. 35 is the only door with 2 instruments, but
Well, my strained preferred explanation for those is just uses the horn and the fiddle, which are the only 2 real objects just sitting there. Because the horn is an angel's instrument and the fiddle is the devil's instrument. And we've got a room which has like a hell like thing down below, so it kind of seems to.
yeah, I'm not sold that that's correct, but I think that's at least reasonable. Like, if Manson issued a statement that that's what he was thinking, I wouldn't be shocked.
Right.
I don't think that's like a solvable puzzle, but I could see. I mean, it's certainly reasonable to say fiddle associated with the devil.
Mm-hmm.
These, I don't know if you want to call it a clarion or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
those sorts of horns associated with the angels.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't. I'm not going to die for that solution, but I think it's a possible thing, considering there's lots of other biblical type stuff scattered throughout.
I mean, the thing is, it's not like going to 35 is particularly devilish, though.
No.
I mean, it's like an odd place to put in devil imagery, because I think anywhere else that he uses devil imagery, it's either in the trap or at doors leading to the trap, at least that I can think of off the top of my head, right?
Yeah. So, like, what room?
You got like 32. You've got
The dumb figure over 6.
Yeah. You've got 43
Our favorite room.
with the devilish looking face. Apparently, it's meant to conceal a bull, according to the intellectually dishonest.
Oh.
And then, arguably 38. Well, not really. There's nothing real devilish looking about that, except that if you draw comparisons to the Devil Tarot card, which I guess is a little strained, right. You wouldn't do that unless you were already thinking devil stuff. But of course, 26.
Mm-hmm.
Devils associated with the Well, although one of the devil's tail is pointing just to 36, which is not.
True. But he's not a real devil.
Uh,
So if he was trying to keep that consistent, that might have been a way for him to say, oh, well, that's a pretend one. But like, I guess a carving of a devil is also a pretend one. So that doesn't work. Anyway, the devil that is really indicating door 38 for sure.
mm,
We were off topic there.
it's not off topic. I think it's fairly related to 33 and what we're talking about here.
Yeah, because it's hard not to think like you've got this room and it's, there's like a scary looking light down below that you obviously do not want to fall into. It's sort of hard not to think of hell when you get that kind of an image.
Mm-hmm. And the instruments here, I would guess, also are meant to relate to room 7, where it says that music can be heard nearby, which, I mean, obviously relates at least to 36, but I think it's meant to relate to both of these rooms. So that either you go to 36 where people are actually playing music, or you're in 7 and you read that they could hear music nearby, and then you come to this room and see the abandoned instruments.
Right.
It's still going to make you think back to 7 and maybe feel like you're on a path, a trail here, which is misleading.
A topic thoroughly covered in Sounds of the Maze.
Retracing our steps here. I mean, the interesting thing is, if you come from 7, then the only other choices you have here both have instruments by them, so it's like thoroughly unhelpful, even if you're trying to take that as a clue. But that's also sort of, like, I would say, believable that he would do that.
Yeah. As an attention using thing.
Right.
So the instruments in here could just be completely part of like an interconnected misdirection scheme.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that could be the purpose of the loop entirely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, and there are relationships going both ways. I mean, both 33 and 7 contain crowns. They can, 33 has this horn, 7 has the bull horns pretty prominently.
Mm-hmm.
It's the sort of connections leading you in both directions.
Yeah.
Which are probably just meaningless echoes. Like, I don't think that there's a puzzle in that. I think it's just meant to catch someone's eye and lead them down the wrong path.
And that makes a lot of sense for the loop, because that's the whole point of the loop, is just for you to wander around for a long time and be very confused.
Right. The longer he can keep you wandering around here, the more the loop has served its purpose.
Yeah.
Which is actually structurally pretty interesting. I mean, not to get totally off topic with 33 to start talking about the structure of the loop, and we've probably talked about it somewhat, but it's interesting that so much of the loop does not contain any entrances to the trap, because it seems like from a design perspective, at least initially, you would think, well, there's no stakes here. Like, what's the point of having this loop of rooms where people are just going to wander around if eventually they have to come back towards this main area? Either let them get there more directly or put something in here that can lead them away. But in a way, that's sort of, for people who are not mapping out the maze, are looking to understand the structure of it immediately, it probably does extend the amount of time they spend playing through the maze normally, before either memorizing what all the bad doors are that go into the trap.
I'm just going to for a second. Keep talking.
Oh, you're pulling up stuff. What was I saying? It the faster people go into the trap, the quicker they're going to learn what the rooms are that they don't want to go into. And probably also like the less fun it is if you just fell into the trap immediately. So the loop seems to serve the purpose of having this staging area. That's not the right word I want to use, but this area where people are not able to make it to the center to figure out anything about solving it. So it like keeps them off the right track, but it doesn't immediately end a run either. So it sort of extends someone's trip through the maze before they fall into the trap, which keeps the maze intriguing, I think, longer than if there were entrances to the trap all over. Like at least it's arguable. Like it's an interesting.
It makes sense. It's obviously constructed that way, and it also, on the other hand, it keeps the path more dangerous.
Yeah.
By having a lot of exit. Did you already say that? I'm sorry, I had to go for a second.
Did I already say what?
Did you already say that about the path? That like by having a lot of exits to the trap, it makes those rooms more dangerous, even though you're on the right path.
No, I didn't think about that, or I didn't say anything about the path. But you know, the interesting thing about the path then, and this was maybe inadvertent, but then it can actually start to make you think, if you're not mapping things out, that the path is like part of the bad rooms that you don't want to go to. Because if you find yourself keep going to those rooms and then getting stuck,
right?
Think, okay, I don't want to go that way. I'm going to go a different way. And if you go to the rooms where you've been safe, where you've been able to do a lot of looking around without falling into the trap, well, you're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
So there does seem to be a fairly intelligent design behind having all these what seem to be pointless rooms that eventually are going to spill you out and the place you have to go anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of amazing how well it all works for the perspective of an overall experience of someone just wandering through the maze.
Mm-hmm.
Like without thinking of room level puzzles or anything like that, but just the experience of it as a pure maze.
And I could almost believe that these symbols are just sense, but what about that carriage up there? I just can't imagine. It's so discordant with everything. If he were just putting symbols in there to fill stuff in and mislead people, I just can't see him getting to the end of it and saying, you know what I really need to add here is carriage.
Right. Why?
So weird.
And it's a poster on an angle. There was some solution that had to do with it being on an angle, right?
Yeah, because it can like back up into door 3, I guess. Like if you backed it up in a straight line, it would go to door 3.
Oh, because of the
text.
The text has like turned back in it.
That makes a lot of sense. Turn back, that's the same thing as backing up your carriage, right?
No start. Should we read the text?
No, well, if you want, go ahead.
I guess we don't really need to. We've read it a million times.
Well, and we've read it specifically on the room. Well, who cares? Let's do it anyway.
All right.
The room with no floor. I kind of like that designation of the room as the room with no floor.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately think of it as having no floor either if it didn't say that. Like you would think of it as the room with a big pit in it.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like a relevant description of the room.
Mm-hmm.
They crowded each other on the narrow ledge. The bold one ventured out to the center. You could see all of the signs only from the center of the room. Several wanted to turn back. caution considering their predicament. They finally reached the door they wanted and eventually found themselves in
Exaggerated caution considering their predicament. It's just so weird, that wording.
Yeah. Exaggerated caution. If you're just writing a story explaining, why would you say that they exaggerated their caution?
Mm-hmm. We were talking at one point about the triangular signs being like caution signs. But I mean, they're all triangular like that, so it doesn't. Yeah, I would say this is one of the most frustrating rooms in Maze.
I probably agree until we look at any other room.
Oh. What are the chances of that thing being a chariot?
Could be.
I mean, that's another one of our tarot connections, right?
Yeah, I talked about that in the longest post ever on the Abyss.
Well, we could. I mean, I feel like I know your thoughts on 35 and the clues in 35 that have to do with this room.
I don't know, what are the clues in 35 that are supposed to involve this room?
So, okay. God, I can't even remember. So, is it just the fact that there's things in threes? Is that all it is? It can't be it. So there's all this talk about it being a signal, a warning or direction, not much help, and there's only one way to go. But there's nothing particularly three-ish about the figure itself. It's more that there's just like, oh, there's three cushions and right, three legs on the, oh well, yeah, I guess the three legs. The three legs on the couch because one of the legs is missing. Three visible legs on the bench. The three-button suit. I don't know.
Yeah, it's garbage.
I mean, I like some of the other stuff that is supposed to refer to other stuff in the loop, like the blank sheet of paper, which is also in room 18, in the bass clef. I don't know, like there's enough that makes me think that he could have been thinking that.
Sort of. I mean, I don't think it's a crazy thought to have. I mean, it's a thought that I've had. I don't think it pans out very well. If that were you would think that if that were what was going on, that this room should chart a course from here back to 1 or at least 41 or something.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do some really strained association to make it all the way along that path.
Yeah, it really doesn't work all the way along. It works for like for 3 or 4 rooms, you can come up with some relatively credible stuff. But you're right, that's not very satisfying. Like you can come up with credible stuff for
rooms off that path. Oh no, you're going to list the ones on the path that you could come up with credible stuff for.
Yeah, so like,
sorry, I thought you were going to make the point that if we took rooms off the path and looked for anything in here that related to them, we could do that too.
Well, probably. But like 33, 3, and 18 Each of those 3 rooms, it has some reasonable stuff.
Hmm.
And maybe 13.
Yeah, and like the matches on the floor in 35, I would be happy with those being put there as a clue for the idea that you're matching things here to stuff in other rooms.
Right.
I just don't think it works out in a convincing way.
Yeah. I don't either, but at the same time, I I don't think that doesn't mean that that's not what he was going for. Like, just because it didn't succeed perfectly doesn't mean that's not what he was trying to do.
Well, I don't think it failed on like an artistic level. I just mean that our description of the solution fails to appear convincing.
Yeah.
Uh, I guess we're kind of sidetracked on the 35 now.
I like 35. 35 has always been my favorite.
35 seems like one of the pivotal rooms. Like,
Yeah.
if we could understand what was going on in 35, we'd understand. Feels like you'd understand even problems in your own real life if you could make sense of 35.
Yeah. I think so.
It'd be like structure of the atom. Like
Yeah. Well,
things would make sense that you had no idea were related.
I think they have a pretty good handle on the structure of the atom.
Well, but yeah, but before people did,
Oh, I see. Okay.
and they discovered it, and like it was amazing. They learned all kinds of things about the universe.
Yes. So if we could only figure out this room, it would unlock so much knowledge and understanding.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe-
what should this room do? To me, what the room should do, if this is a legitimate signal, and since the guide seems to be trying to mislead them about what it means,
Mhm.
I suspect that it does mean something legit. And it's like if it's going to say something, what it should be saying is go back to the beginning. Don't know how it says that.
Right. Go back to 1 kind of thing. Although that's not helpful, right? It doesn't tell you how, if it doesn't tell you how.
No, but even that information is helpful. I mean, eventually you're going to need to work your way back to 41, and your inclination is probably not going to be to go back to room 1.
That's true. Okay, you're right. It's good to have the information. The only way out of here is by going back to 1.
There's that blank page behind it. Is there any expression or common metaphor where a blank page is associated with starting over or starting again? Not really, eh?
Not really. I mean, in the sense, like, you could think of a, a person being, yeah, like you could think of a blank page as being a beginning, but it's not like there's a common idiom that says that.
No.
Hmm. I mean, everything's sort of old and broken down and falling apart. And it's just like, get out of here. This isn't any good for you. That doesn't say go back to 1. I mean, maybe that's what that stick is supposed to be, but
Yeah. Number 1. That's what the figure means. It's just composed of a bunch of.
1s. Well, if you rearrange it, you get 1V plus a 1 for 1. 41. Anyway, that's ridiculous engineering. What's that thing under the couch, do you think, on the right?
A stick.
It's just a stick. On the left,
Yeah, like
the left, the thing looks like a stick, but
oh, you're looking at the right.
yeah.
It's like a different kind of stick.
Okay. That's most helpful.
It is to ignore that stuff when you've got like the little matches hidden down by the right, which almost certainly relevant to something.
Sure.
Like he didn't just get bored of doing his cross hatching down there and I had to draw some matches.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's hidden enough so that if you're just looking casually at the room, you wouldn't notice them,
Uh,
which suggests that they are meaningful.
which is one of the better connections, matches, fire, room 18.
Mm-hmm. All that flammable stuff.
It's 25 doesn't have a good connection for us, does it? Here.
So the connection that, my shitty connection to room 25 is the last line of text in 35.
Oh, where they talk about the lack of clues.
Well, no, they say we left the thing standing alone in light and silence. That's all 35. And so the door you take in 25 is where he's not screaming and he's in light and silence.
Sorry, yeah, I was thinking of the last line of 25, although that's not actually the last line. It's the last paragraph.
Okay.
Talk about the lack of clues.
Right.
That's pretty rough.
It's pretty rough.
I mean, that guy in 25 looks like he's probably wearing a suit. It's not the same suit that's hanging up there, though.
I think
that's a suit. Are those just suspenders?
No, I think that's a suit, actually. I think he's got a jacket on.
I can't tell. I can't tell whether those are like lapels or suspenders.
Oh, yeah, maybe it is just suspenders. Actually, in Lucky Make the Book, I'm inclined to say suspenders. Anyway. Well, and that's the thing, right? In 25, it does say, disconcerted by the apparent lack of clues, perhaps in another room. So, like, it does seem like another hint that something like that could be going on somewhere.
All right, so let's take that as our ouch. We'll give ourselves a free pass on that one. So what direction to go here? So 13, what, the light bulb?
Yeah.
All right.
Then I can go to 13.
What about 3?
So 3, there's like a literal matchstick man. You don't like that one?
What, for the matches, matchstick man?
Well, for the matches are just to match the actual icon himself, like the actual figure in the middle of 33, 35.
Yeah, that seems rough.
You're looking for something not rough in Maze.
Well, I can, like, matches fire. I can draw that connection. Like a vaguely human figure, 3-legged, one-armed, in the center of 35, completely different stick figure in 3. Yep, that's their match. Seems really too far.
So this room, like, this is the room where there's supposed to be some kind of crazy thing going on with flipping and whatever, and like it certainly seems like there should be something going on with that. But figure out what Raven had in mind. But in 35, we have hooks that are flipped mirror-wise and then flipped through the vertical plane or horizontal plane as well. So White Raven said, oh, yes, that matches with this solution, but you don't have the solution yet, so I can't tell you.
No, it just has to do with flipping those numbers around.
Mm-hmm.
cetera, et cetera.
That's very frustrating because those numbers really work together in kind of amazing ways to make the door numbers.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a lot of numbers with them, but it is interesting that it makes those numbers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's look at 18. So 18, I think, is the strongest one for the 35 connection.
I think the bass clef is probably taking things too far.
Oh, I don't. I just think it's such a clearly drawn detail. And the one on the left on the sofa that is the right orientation to be a clef. And then, as you say, we have the fire things. You pick the one closest to the fire. And then there's also that blank sheet of paper in the doorway.
Yeah, I think I like that more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know, again, I don't buy any of this, but
You don't buy it, but do you not buy it? Like, do you think it's definitely wrong?
um, yeah, I don't think the stuff in 35 marks a trail to 41.
At all.
Right. I mean, like I said, it makes the most sense for a message to me would be that something in here is telling you to return to the beginning, but which would mean going to 41, but I don't think this has clues associated with the rooms along the trail. Back to back to one.
Right.
Maybe it does.
I think it does. I feel pretty confident that a lot of those things are meant to be hints for rooms that follow along. Like I mean, obviously it doesn't take you all the way, but it takes you through the next 4 anyway. Like there's no way you would remember this stuff or know to interpret it that way, but in hindsight, I can see how he put this stuff in there thinking that that's what it was meant to do.
Yeah, I don't think it's a serious problem that the clues wouldn't actually be helpful because no clue in any room is in practice been helpful because no one can figure any of this stuff out.
Right.
Um, I mean, it could be that this is like the puzzle solution where it's just so badly implemented that even when you've struck upon the correct solution, it doesn't look right. But this seems even worse than that to me.
Hmm.
Like, you really, in the words, to paraphrase Ned Flanders, I think, straining to do some explaining.
Sort of what maze solving is all about.
Yeah. Well, like, certainly, like, if you look at room 9, which is not along the short path there, like, that room is just flat out similar to 35. Like, where 35 talks about being somebody's basement, and then this is like dirt level with a route dug down underneath it. Like, you're literally looking into a basement there. The rafter.
35 doesn't seem to be actually a basement.
Well, but I'm just saying, if you were drawing connections, like here's something mentioned in 35 that's in this room.
Right.
And
it's
rafter up, very similar.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
The mouse is blind. The figure has its eyes covered.
Right.
That's stupid, but it's not more stupid than the things you have to accept to, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Ugh, this room's annoying too. God, they're all frustrating.
So, I mean, this is nominally still been part of our discussion of room 33 because we were discussing whether 35 relates to 33 in this fashion, which at least tangentially involves whether 35 relates to any room in this fashion.
Yeah, it's all related. I don't have a lot of hope that we're going to come up with anything earth shattering about 33.
Oh, we absolutely won't.
No. We didn't talk about we didn't talk about things kind of looking like the numbers. So like the jug kind of looking like a 3 on its right side. And the V
Yeah.
5. Acronym.
Yeah. And I mean, 7 is a little strained. I mean, you can draw a 7 on those things, but kind of just have to ignore large parts of them. I mean, essentially, we're just saying that those things have angles on them. They have acute angles, and with a dagger, you still have to kind of draw a line. You essentially just have to cut off 2 parts of it to leave a 7 line. I think it's only one of them has to make the number anyway to complete our pattern there.
I mean, the ring does kind of have a 3 shape as part of it. It was not great. And then the urn has another 3 sort of over on the left there.
Yeah, and even the picture by, well, you're right, the picture by 35 has like a 3-ish shape on the right-hand side, and then the V is a 5.
I mean, what does this get you? Nothing.
Well, even if, I mean, even if that renders the images pointless, if that's the generative principle that he used to make them, at least we can say, okay, that's what they're about.
That's true. You can eliminate them as some kind of door riddle or whatever we have to solve.
Right, kind of like in room 8, where I think that smiling face on the unmarked door is teeth row, an anagram for 2-3, because the door would go to room 23. That's completely pointless, but
it explains it.
Right. That's where if that's what happened, then that's where he got the idea for that picture. That's the explanation for that picture. And that's all out of this stuff.
I came up with so many tooth related anagrams for room 18 after you did that. Because you 13. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
So I added 13, and I think I added those, whatever those 2 notes are, I can't remember. And I got a bunch of different interesting things, but like it just seems improbable. Although I don't know, maybe with FR retreats, it's not so improbable that there's a lot more crazy anagrams.
Well, no, I mean, there's certainly seems like anagramming is one of the predominant. Well, I guess I don't know why I'd say that, but in the few things we have, anagrams are all over. We've got anagrams in room 1, anagrams in room 30, anagrams in the ocean. And yeah, so I think looking for anagrams seems like a good way to go.
It's AC 13 AC.
So what do they leave in 13 when you take out teeth? Just IRN?
Yeah. That's why I had to add something.
Yeah, that doesn't give you a lot to work with. Maybe you can find the letter R in the teeth.
Maybe. I'd have to go back and figure this out. I was working on it for a while. It didn't really get anywhere. It does seem kind of silly that he would have 2 teeth anagrams. It seems like a little much, but
Yeah, but on the other hand, if you're making an anagram out of 13, that's maybe a likely word to go to.
Mhm. Maybe it's 13 chair. I don't know.
All right. Let's focus here. 33.
Okay.
Oh, is there anything else I have to say about 33? I feel like I'm tapped out on the nothing that we've said about 33.
I know, we just reiterated, well, here are the things in the room. Here's things people have said. Nothing is very satisfying.
Yeah, it's still hard for me not to think of 33 as being connected to 6, like with the stack of blocks there. And
Mhm.
6 sort of being a room without a ceiling. Well, it does have a ceiling, it just has a hole in the ceiling far up. So,
Yeah, I mean, I sort of feel like the opposite.
although it's hard to connect them literally because in 33, the light's coming from below, and 6, the light's coming from a hole above.
Mm-hmm.
There's a light source in the middle of the two,
Mm-hmm.
which could be.
Could be. It could be like a giant torch on top of that. You know, it looks like a support, but maybe it's a giant torch.
Mm.
But
Well, I think we're probably done here.
okay.
We don't have to be if you got something else to say, but
I don't have a lot more to say about 33. I feel like we could talk more about the maps, but maybe we should save that for another time.
no, there's no reason to save anything. It's going to be 8 months before we do another Mazecast. If you got something to say about the maps, you better get it out of your system now.
Oh, I don't have anything specific to say, but I just feel like it's something we haven't really talked about a lot as like it's a specific topic. Hang on.
Maybe we should end this one and do a second Mazecast about the maps.
Like right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So part 2 of of tonight's festivities will be a 5-minute discussion about the maps.
Um okay. Well, we've been Mazecast. We've been talking about room 33. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned.